For me, by far, the most dangerous of all writing assumptions is the idea that writing is or should be easy. And this is dangerous because once you figure out writing is hard, it can be really easy to assume that it's only hard for you, and then you're more likely to stop. And it's not true. It's hard for all of us. Welcome to the Write It Scared podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Frazer, a formerly repressed creative soul turned fiction writer, story editor, and author accelerator certified fiction book coach. At Write It Scared, we tell the truth about why writing a novel is so hard by acknowledging that most writers grapple with two stories. The one they want to put on the page to the best of their ability, and the often subconscious internal story that prevents them from doing it. This show is designed to help you identify and rewrite the internal narrative holding you back while you discover and write the story you want to tell and learn all the tools to help you do that successfully. Join me each week for a new episode where we'll talk about writing to deepen our understanding of the craft and of ourselves as writers. Writing a novel is an inside job that we do not do alone. Welcome to Write It Scared. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. Hi, writer. Welcome back to the Write It Scared podcast. I'm your host, Stacy, and this is episode number 17. Today, we're going to talk about 3 variations of unhelpful writing assumptions that might be holding you back from writing your best book. So, assumptions. You know what they say about those, right? Yeah, something to do with asses. Makes an ass out of you, makes an ass out of me. But I don't think we set out to make assumptions. We're just human. And at some point, each of us is going to make conjectures about writing, about the writing process. And oftentimes, we don't even know that we're doing it. But 9 times out of 10, these conjectures or assumptions, they don't serve us. So I want to take a look at some of the common writing assumptions that we writers struggle with, pick them apart, look at what's really true, and then talk about how to reframe them and give you some ideas about what to think and do instead. For me, by far, the most dangerous of all writing assumptions is the idea that writing is or should be easy. And this is dangerous because once you figure out writing is hard, it can be really easy to assume that it's only hard for you, and then you're more likely to stop. And it's not true. It's hard for all of us. So this assumption that writing is or should be easy has a lot of different variations, and sometimes it masquerades as helpful ideas, but it's not. It keeps us from finishing our books. So I want to dig in and uncover some of the sneaky internal stories that might be feeding into these assumptions that run through our minds as we develop and draft and revise our stories. So here we go. Number 1, the creative process should be flowy, romantic, and effortless. The muse will strike us with a bolt of inspiration and we'll be off to the races. Yeah, no. Now, I got to tell you about the romantic fantasy I used to have about writing novels. It involved a perfect spring day, sitting at my desk, which was outside for some reason. It overlooked a pond. There were ducks. I shit you not. I had a typewriter, even though it was 2010. And the ideas just flowed, and I typed away effortlessly. And the story flowed onto the pages, and the manuscript magically arranged itself into this perfect stack of polished words. Yeah, told you, complete fantasy. And here's the truth. If we depend on a lightning strike of inspiration to get us to a finished book, we're never going to get there. Writing is about dedication and hard work. Creativity is messy. Drafting is messy. Creating a story that you'll be proud of will take numerous rounds of iteration at each stage of the process. And it will get hard, really hard. There will be days when you hate writing, when you believe the story is utterly stupid and that what you really need is a dumpster and a match. So it's not romantic, it's not flowy, and it's certainly not effortless. And romanticizing the idea of writing, it's okay. And I think we all do it. But what also is okay is having bad days. Bad days happen to all of us, and what you want to remind yourself of is that it's just a day, and perhaps you need to step away for a bit. You might be forcing the story or need a different perspective. Mainly, what is required of writers is persistence, set at a tolerable pace that allows you to focus on the aspects you enjoy and tolerate what you don't. It won't always be fun, but you will always be glad that you did it. So what to do and think instead? Show up for the mess that you're bound to make. Lower your expectations. Focus on what you enjoy and build in some accountability into your writing process so that you can show up on the days that you don't want to, just like you would for your day job. And remember, there are many ways to make progress in a story. Time spent thinking about it is just as necessary as time spent actually putting the words down on the page. Number 2, writing a novel probably isn't all that hard and won't take all that long, and therefore, what I write should be good on the first try. Here's the truth, and I know you're probably laughing with me or maybe at me, because I believed this when I started writing. Now, quick side note, I also thought that only people with natural talent could be authors, like super special people, which was a wildly untrue assumption of mine. Now, talent is a thing, sure, but writing and storytelling are learnable skill sets. They take time and effort. There's no two ways about that, but they're absolutely attainable if you have a desiring and open mind. And so my point here is that, yeah, the natural talent idea held me back for a long time, but once I kind of got over that and I permitted myself to try writing, I fell prey to the idea of, well, I read a ton, so how hard could writing a novel really be? And don't feel bad if you've thought this way or if you still do, because here's the deal. We're kind of set up to fall into this trap. We're all consumers of polished media. When a book or a movie finally makes it into our hands, it's supposed to look and feel like it was effortlessly made. It's supposed to entertain us and educate us and delight us. And if it does that, that means the team behind the book or the movie or the play did a fantastic job. We don't get to see the ugly, the blood, the sweat, the tears that went into the production of the finished product. And that in and of itself skews our perception of reality. So if you get to this place where you've assumed that writing couldn't be all that hard, and then you're like, oh my God, this is really hard. And then you're like, well, look at all the good stuff out there in the world. There must be something wrong with me. No, there's not. There's nothing wrong with you. It's hard for all of us. Here's what I want you to think and do instead. Whenever you doubt your efforts or your endeavors, check yourself. Are you comparing your draft, maybe your first draft, with a favorite novel on your shelf? If so, don't do that. It's not going to help. That's comparing apples and oranges. That polished novel on your shelf has a team behind it. But here's what I do want you to do. Grab that novel and look the author up. Read the author's note at the back of the book and look at all the folks they thanked for helping them bring this new story into the world. Look up how long the process took them. How many books did they write before they were published? See what you find. Those ideas bring me comfort when I start feeling like the end is nowhere in sight and this is all just a mess. Because honestly, it reminds me that there is no end. There is only the process and making forward progress. Assumption number 3. Writing must be a solitary endeavor. Yeah, no. Here's the truth. Writing often does feel like a solo act, a lot of the time. The writing part, the typing part, or the penning it, yeah, it happens alone. But the creative process does not. It takes a village. From story ideation to drafting to revision and polishing, we need others to help us craft the best story possible. Why? Because by ourselves, we only have our limited perspective to go off of. We only have our experience to draw from, and it's not enough. It's not enough to save us when the going gets tough. When our minds wreak havoc with our intentions, when we get to a place where we can't see the forest for the damn trees, hell, by then, maybe we can't even recall what a tree looks like. That's when you've lost count of how many revisions you've done. Been there. So here's what to think and do instead. We need community. Find a writing community of like-minded folks who get you. Now, you're going to have to take risk. You're going to have to be vulnerable. You're going to have to put your hand out there, and you're definitely going to need some boundaries. But do seek a healthy writing community. And if that feels too scary, find a mentor, get support from a writing coach or a book coach. Follow people who inspire you and follow people who are willing to share when they struggle, as well as when they experience success, because that normalizes the roller coaster for everybody. And I guarantee you'll feel less lonely. We are not meant to be emotional islands. We simply need to find the right people to share with and allow our creativity to blossom because of it. So, question for you. What writing assumptions did you begin your journey with? Are there any that are still lingering? Did any of these hit the mark for you? Are you being mindful about what your brain is telling you when you're frustrated? Do you have a process to help you identify unhelpful beliefs and reframe them? If you don't, I'm going to give you 2 suggestions. The first is to check out my free mindset tool, which is called the Right Mindset. I know, very cheeky, right? And it's designed to help you face writing fears and overcome creative blocks by identifying unhelpful internal narratives and teach you how to rewrite them into affirming beliefs and then how to put those beliefs into action. And I will make sure I drop a link to it in the show notes. But you can also find it at writeitscared.com/the right mindset, spelled WRITE. Next, if you're looking for a supportive and small writing community to get started with that comes with professional mentorship to help you learn how to write a book that you're proud of, my small group book coaching for writers who are in need of story development and drafting support is opening back up for the fall of 2024. And here's what writers are saying about their group coaching experiences with Write It Scared. So I'm going to toot my own horn here for a second, which feels very odd, but they were incredibly moving. So here's the first one. This is from Emily. She's a rom-com writer. And she says, I'm writing to say how incredibly helpful your group coaching has been. Your craft modules have enabled me to better understand both my story and my main character. Your coaching style is accessible and fosters a great sense of community. Overall, it's been such a great experience, and I've looked forward to every call. The next review is from Christy, who is a fantasy writer, and Christy says, I don't know where I'd be in my writing journey without the guidance and insights I've gained from group coaching. I'm obsessed with the little community you've created for us, and I will keep coming back because I learn something new on every call. Thank you. And the last one is from Denise, a women's fiction author. Denise says, this course is by far the most useful forum I've come across in my quest to draft my first novel. From day one, Stacy has been encouraging, supportive, and has a wealth of knowledge on the subject of fiction writing. She is by far the best writing coach I have worked with, and because of her, my first draft has moved closer to completion. I highly recommend this group. And side note, she did finish her first draft, and now she's revising it. Let me tell you how big my heart feels from reading these beautiful reviews. It is such an honor and a pleasure to work with these writers. So the small group coaching cohorts will begin this September, and you can apply for a spot now, and if it's a good fit for you and your story, I would be honored to help you. I'll make sure that I list a link to that service in the show notes. But you can also go to the website, writeitscared.co, and under the service tab and look up group coaching for more information. I hope this episode has allowed you to identify some unhelpful writing assumptions that might be running around in your brain. You're not alone. And, we all start from a place of unknowing, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. What's important is that we stay and we learn and we grow and we flourish because of what we learn, and then we pay it forward. And I believe the best way to do that is within community. So thank you very much for tuning in today, and I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Write It Scared podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please make sure to hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. And please leave a review. Reviews help other writers like you find the voices and messages they need to hear to continue to write their stories. Let's lift each other up. Remember, you can be scared and still be unstoppable. I'll see you next week.